Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to our August meeting. Obviously welcome to our staff and those watching us online on the live stream, and also to our visitors in the room this morning. Do I have any apologies? We have already received Caleb and James Thomas. And we'll put in Kevin Tappan, he's unwell, so he will join us online at some stage. Would someone like to move the apologies be accepted, please?
Yeah.
Move Sarah Jane, seconded Russell. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carry. Is there any notification of urgent additional business? Good. Are there any declarations of interest in today's items? Straightforward. Hey, can I have the confirmation of the minutes of the July 24 meeting, please?
Yep.
Thank you, Dane. Move Dane, seconded Sharon. All those in favour, please say aye. Yes, carry. Okay, this morning we have a public forum. We welcome Ross Miller and his wife Janet, but Ross is going to speak to our decision today about the Māori Awards, our first agenda item. So welcome, Ross. Come on up to the Tomato will guide you up to where you can sit. Thank you. And just 5 minutes, and councillors would have may ask points of clarification, but thank you, Ross.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to make a brief submission to the council on favour of the retention of the Māori Ward. Janet and I live in Te Araha, and we own the Whittaker Gallery in Whittaker Street, Te Araha. Sir Frederick Whittaker was a prominent 19th century New Zealand politician, lawyer and businessman. He had a partner in his legal firm called Thomas Russell. Russell founded the Bank of New Zealand, and Whittaker was a major investor in the Bank of New Zealand. Both were ministers in the government in July 1863 at the outbreak of the Land War. By November of that year, Whittaker was Premier of New Zealand and Russell was the Defence Minister. At the end of the Land War, large areas of land were confiscated from local iwi. One such block was the Piako Swamp Block. This block included areas now known as Tatanui, Tipaninga, Springdale, Tahuna, Otway and Waitoa. It's a large area of land. This land was intended to be given to soldiers who had fought on the government side in the Land War. This never happened. In 1873, this block was purchased from the government by Whittaker and Russell for less than half of the government mandated price, and then sold on at a great profit. The previous owners received no compensation. Considering these facts, and some fairly dubious land acquisitions made by Josiah Firth around Matamata, I believe that this council should retain its Māori Ward so that the local iwi can have their perspective considered during council deliberations. Claims that a Māori Ward is anti-democratic are not logical. This ward was voted for by you, the democratically elected councillors, and I note that there is no call for a referendum on the retention of the 3 existing wards that this council has. If there was to be a referendum on those 3 wards, it is likely that we here in Te Araha would only have 2 councillors. I believe that this referendum has been forced by central government that has little or no respect for local government. It is but one of many divisive measures being inflicted on this country by 2 minority coalition parties. Please retain the Māori Ward now and campaign for its retention at the next election. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. It's some good history. Thank you for sharing this.
This book, we sell books together as well. This book was published on Monday.
Oh, wow.
Right. And it's a really great history of the invasion of the Waikato, written by Winston O'Malley, who's written about 4 or 5 books on this subject.
And you've obviously got a few copies in your.
We have a few.
Thank you for taking the time to use the public forum to share your view. This is exactly what the public forum is for. And thank you for taking that opportunity. And thank you, Janet, for joining in this morning. Right, with that, we will now move on to item 7.1, which is the Local Government Electoral Legislation of Maori Wards and Maori Constituencies Amendment Act 2024 and the decision on the Maori Ward options.
Okay, so as you're all aware by now, the Amendment Act came into law in July. Central government have given us two options. Option one is to disestablish the Māori ward and complete a shortened representation review to come into effect for the 2025 elections. What that means is that we would not have a Māori election for 2025. Option two is to retain the Māori ward and hold a binding poll alongside the 2025 local elections, and the result of that poll would come into effect for the 2028 elections. Because of the estimate population stats that we've received, we do not have the option to revert to our previous arrangements. We have engaged with Mana Whenua Forum on the 11th of June and 6th of August. The recommendation that they have provided us was to oppose the Act in its entirety. We've got two recommendations in the report. The first is to either disestablish the Māori ward and go into a shortened representation review, and also to call an extraordinary meeting on the 11th of September, if that is the case, so that we can resolve on an initial proposal for the representation. And the second is to retain the Māori ward and head into a referendum for the 2025 election.
Thank you. Has anyone got any comment? I'll just open up. We've obviously received bulk emails from those who belong to Hobson's Pledge. They were obviously asking us to disestablish, and that they said the referendum was expensive. I think they neglected to recognise the rep review that would need to be undertaken. And I think we've been looking at this, watching this progress over time. And one of the factors we have one of the challenges, if there was a desire to disestablish, was the shortened rep review would not create an ideal outcome for this council going forward, because our census data is not in yet. It won't be in for at least another 12 months. So the rep review that we would be undertaking would not be current going forward. So that would not be ideal given the growth in our population and understanding where the population movements are. And I think there is it's been mentioned about disestablishing wards. That is an option that is yet to be discussed, and I think that's where a full representation review in the next triennium, which will begin in 2026, is the time to reflect on our ward structure, because we are forced to do a shortened rep review because our numbers are out of kilter by the plus or minus 10%, not only in Te Aroha, but if we were to disestablish, it would also go much significantly out of kilter. So with that, obviously I think there's been a desire. I've talked to a number of people in the community, and they're more than happy for us to go to the referendum and let the community speak. But anyway, I've got a light on from Gary, so I've said my bit just to introduce it. Thank you, Gary.
Madam Mayor, I just want to express my my satisfaction that we've had some really good discussions here in council, and I'm comfortable that we've landed through those discussions with a really solid space, and I would like to, if I could, move that council adopts option 2 of the recommendations.
Thank you, Gary. So that is to go to the binding poll in 2025. So it's moved, Gary, seconded Sue. Yeah. So that is that we retain the Māori ward that Te Toa Horopi, Matamata-Piako, and undertakes a binding poll alongside the 2025 training elections on whether the district should be divided into one or more Māori wards. The result of this poll will be effective for the 2028 and 2030 elections, and the council, with the council undertaking a full representation review by 2028 as planned. So with that, I will put the vote. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We've spent a lot of time
With your
deliberating on this. Yep. That's
Thank you.
right. We will now move on to item 7.2, which we probably haven't got buried down yet. Pretty straightforward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ross and Janet, for taking the time. Is Barry coming down or not? No? It's probably one that we can achieve on our own. So item 7.2 is the road naming for stage 1 for the Matamata Country Club Retirement Village. These are private roads, so it comes under a different rule around the names of the roads. And are there any comments for it? We have several streets there, all in English.
I can remove option 1, the preferred name.
Comments.
Does that
Just a comment that it seems like a lot of roads for quite a small area, and some of those things that about 2 or 3 houses. But I don't suppose it's possible to change the numbering and limit the number of roads. So whatever.
It's quite significant how it will be.
It's quite-
Oh, Barry's online. Good morning, Barry.
it's all good.
Yeah,
Good
it
morning.
aims to service the community that will be living there. Hi, Barry. We just discussed it briefly that they're private roads, so they come under a different process for naming.
Yeah, under the retirement guidelines. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're quite similar, but we had a few iterations of this to get it right, but worked well with Jordan at Matamata Country Club, so I think it's a good result.
Perfect. No, that's great. James.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that. My only reflection would be that liquid amber crescent is spelled incorrectly. So
Oh,
I
that's
don't
too.
know if they hear about that, but more just an observation that
Well done, James.
moving forward, is anyone going to care?
Okay.
People that live near mine.
Yes, exactly.
The people that.
So it's more just a flag for the developers that I know it.
Yeah.
Right. So we. Yep.
Just picking up on James's point, the fourth one there, Matamata Crescent, is that spelled correctly?
Yeah, it's a
Yes,
tree.
it is.
Yeah, it's got.
It's a tree. It's not Michael. It's it's
No,
a tree.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we have moved Sarah Jane and seconded James that the council approves the 16 preferred private road names listed below. Stage 1 of the residential retirement village lots. Country Club. All those in favour, please say aye.
We'll definitely look into the spelling, James, on that one.
Yeah, I mean, like I
Is
don't
it 2 words?
know. It should. I think it's AR. Like it's not.
Oh, liquid amber.
But like I don't care, Barry. It's more just a like flag that what were they intending it to be? Because if it's the tree name, then it's not correct. Yeah.
If you're living in there one day, you should care.
Well, exactly, and I'm going to be saving bets.
I've just brought it up on the internet and it's liquid AMBAR.
Yes.
Sorry, how's it spelled on there? I would have to check the report.
It's AR, as in the colour, amber.
Oh,
So if
okay.
we could just note that in our resolution to clarify the spelling of liquid amber crescent.
Yeah.
Okay,
We don't want
Finley.
to
No.
change, so would it?
No,
If you
yeah,
make
so
the
it's,
resolution,
it-
so we don't.
no.
It's completely
yeah,
fine.
no, it doesn't. It's not a stipulation. It's more just a.
Yeah.
Highlight, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, very good. Estimated. Right, we will now move on to item 7.3, which is the proposal.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Proposed 7.3, which is the proposed Tahuna Boa easement over the Tahuna Domain Recreation Reserve. Seems pretty logical. I guess it adds to the resilience to the Tahuna water supply. It's fortunate that there is some reserve land that we have some delegation over, and to formally put that easement in. Secures the supply for Tahuna. Are there any comments or questions for clarification? Otherwise, oh, hi, Nikki. Is there anything you wanted to add? I think it's fairly straightforward.
Through Madam Chair, no, there's nothing really. Oh, actually there is. We've had word from Ngāti Hawa that they're happy with the proposal, and Three Waters are continuing to liaise with the club on site, and there's positive feedback there from the club, but happy to take any questions.
No, that's great for that clarification.
Sorry, just clarification. Ngāti Hawa is new for that, but have struggled to find reasons to respond to consent questions.
Right. Okay, can I have a mover of the recommendation, please? Thanks, Dane, and a seconder. Thanks, Jane. That is to approve, as you will see. We'll move to the recommendation. Sorry, I need to come down. As the recommendation stands there, 1 through to 6, that the report's received and that we approve the easement and we delegate the assets and project manager to prepare to undertake the administrative actions as it plans. Okay, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, now, item 7.4. We are in the strategic assets space. Those you've moved up to the table. So with our proposed electricity easement over the stormwater reserve at Lockby Estate, anything you would like to add? Taken as read. Any questions for Suze? I think it's fairly logical. It makes sense. Again, nobody's looking to ask any questions, so can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Bruce, would you like to move? So that we receive the report and resolve to accept the right to convey electricity easement and gross to Piako over lot 6001 as indicated in the draft local plan, providing attachment A, and that we authorise staff to complete the necessary administrative actions to give effect to the decision. A seconder, please. Sharon. Yeah. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Some really good strategic things occurring, and now things are happening. Got a good feeling. Right.
The title plan is great reading, Suze. Thanks.
Oh yeah, I just realised there's a few pages.
Yeah.
Not really about that.
Information.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Straight. All right. Item 7.5. With Carolyn here with the proposed removal of the district plan rating designation 77A. This is a bit of a tidy up by the looks.
It is. Yes.
So, is there any questions for Carolyn? I think we can take that as read. And obviously, a designation has a time limit and it has lapsed, and it's obviously changed hands since. So, we now remove it off our district plan. James is happy to move it, and a seconder, Sue. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Excellent. And will you stay on for item 7.6? Yes. Okay, item 7.6, the submissions on the reserve management and freshwater management and other matters amendment bill, and the MB discussion has got a document about making it easier to build granny flats. So these are obviously taken as read, but Carolyn, if you've got anything to add? No? I think there's some planner experts understand the consequences of some of these things, so it's always good to have an opportunity to submit on these legislative proposals. Has anybody got any questions, Carolyn? Please. This recommendation that we, thank you, James, and the seconder. Thanks, Sarah Jane, so that the information is received and we. I'm on the wrong one. I had to move down to my retrospective. Yeah, that's the retrospective. Still on the previous one. That we retrospectively endorse the submission of the council's, the government's resource management freshwater methods amendment bill and the submission on the MB making it to make it easier to build granny flats discussion document. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. So through. Thanks, Carolyn.
No.
Okay, we will move now on to item point 7.7, which is the Party Matamata Stadium update. Well, we need to get an eye down. If we get it time. Yes. Yes. Brilliant. Yes. Thank you. Good morning, Manoa. We're very efficient today. The papers have been self-explanatory, and we've making some progress. So just the decision around the stadium.
Hopefully, morning, Mayor. Good morning, Mayor Adrian, councillors. Hopefully, I can continue the trend or the progress. So, I hope I'll take the report as being read. There are 3 issues that I raised in the report. One of those has now gone away. The quote for the transformer has actually been extended beyond the 30th of September for acceptance. So there's no pressure on that anymore. It's a very, very good price. So we wanted to lock it in, but they've extended it past end of September. In fact, they've extended it until we sign if we sign the main contract. So I can take recommendation 1 off the agenda. Hopefully, recommendation 3 is very straightforward. It's simply that procedural for the Lion Foundation. They needed the resolution to be passed within the 6-month timeframe of the consideration of the grant, because they wanted more information in relation to the grant, which we are able to provide. The resolution, I just need another resolution from council, so I'm hoping number 3 is relatively straightforward. For number 2, which is the design build into advanced aspects of the design build. Now that we have selected a preferred supplier for the design build, was our plan that we would not sign the contract until we get our resource consent. And of course, we're been through the hearing for the resource consent, and we're expecting that by the end of September we will have our consent. And so the plan was always to sign the contract in early October. Having said that, we know that we can de-risk the project if we advanced aspects of the design build with now that we've got a preferred supplier. It'll just mean that the enabling work is scheduled to start at the end of October on site if we sign the contract. And the enabling works is about the foundation, it's about creating the access way. And in an ideal world, you'd have all of that in one contract so that you don't have to worry about trying to mesh the 2 together. There are advantages to the risks in relation to the project if we can advance some of the design build, which then advances discussions with the enabling works contractor. So, as I say, it just means that we've got a little bit of leeway in terms of the project. So we're asking for council's consideration to incur a further $168,000 until before the contract is actually signed, which would be on top of costs that we've already incurred on the project. So understand that it's from a pure project management perspective, from the perspective of building the stadium, it's a really appealing option. But of course, we understand that from a political perspective, there are still some unanswered questions around the project in terms of funding. So we just thought, the team asked me to check in with council as to whether they would be prepared to take that risk.
It's probably appropriate for me at this time to declare my interest, obviously, as a working group member for the stadium. So I will not participate in the discussion. Are there any questions?
I just believe I heard Councillor Thomas say last time we need to get moving. We need to get going on this. We are up to our knees in it. We just need to keep walking through it. And I think that this is what we have to do. We have to do it.
Jane?
Yeah, a couple of things. I just think it's never a cheaper time to do it than it is today. So saying it started a bit better. I think whatever way you spin it, whatever happens, this is still a very good value for money proposition for council. But I also think that, it should be made clear to the Matamata, community that we're not, if there's a funding shortfall, we're not a free ride. We expect them to make every effort to, to come back and meet their obligations from their end. So, with that in mind, I have no problem getting this moving. Happy to move it. The other thing I would ask is, although you said that we don't need to approve point 1 today regarding the power transformer, it's on the agenda. Is there any benefits to delaying that, or we might as well just get it out of the way now as part of being presented in front of us?
We would have accepted the project under our own delegated authority if we had a signed contract. So once there's no issue. I mean, if you wanted to indicate that, that's fine. But under normal project processes, we would have just signed it. It's just the fact that we haven't got the the final decision, and we don't want to assume things, I suppose.
Well, either way, I'm happy to move this either in full or
happy to
without point 1. Yeah.
So moved, Dane, seconded Bruce. Is there any further discussions or questions or clarification? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
All right.
Okay, we'll now jump to item 8.2. Yep. Oh, 8.3. Okay. Yep. Okay, 8.3. We've got the CCO performance coming through. Okay, the local authority shared services final statement 24-25. Thank you, Laura and Sandra. Taken as read, I guess. Any commentary you'd like to add, Laura?
No, I think just to note that council considered the draft at your meeting in April, and we're invited to provide comments. So this is just formalising the statement of intent. There's no major changes. So yes, just for your consideration to receive the report.
Thank you, Laura. So,
As per usual, I just always ask, is this offering us value? That's always my concern. If it is, that's great.
Yeah.
Can I just off the back of that, sorry to interrupt, I read what Sue says, but it's all well and good for them to say in here, that 80% of council respondents believe the services are good, blah, blah, blah. I just wondered if maybe as part of answering Sue's question, you could give us a couple of examples of things that you think are, giving us bit, because just to hear that is a bit broad strokes for me.
No, fair enough. So as far as roading is concerned, they offer, and we take advantage of it, and they offer technical expertise with respect to our asset management function in detail, and that's certainly been very helpful in dealing with NZTA, because it is an area of specialisation. I mean, we can potentially bring that in-house, but there seems a little point if we've got somebody that, an expert, if you like, working across several councils at a more economic rate, I would judge. We also are a recipient of the training modules. They've developed a number of different training modules which are online and which are available to us because we help to fund those. So we take opportunity there. They are just a service is suggested. They have to do a business case for it, and we have to agree to it. In other words, we're not compelled to be part of a process that we're not all that interested in. Just trying to think of one that Kelly attended. Oh, well, yeah, there's a couple. Are we online?
Yes.
There's a couple of services, I'll talk about it in Q&A if you like, a couple of services which are in the preparation stage, which I think will be quite interesting for us. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head what else lab services. They offered lab services, and we've used them for our trade waste service. We've since contracted that out. They bidded for it, local authority, and didn't win it, so we didn't join that part of the service because we've got a commercial provider at a more economic rate. So it's not like we just accept that this is a good thing because we're part shareholder in it. We still place scrutiny on the service we reacquire.
Good point, right? I think it's another way of, even for staff, you can meet with other staff.
Yep.
It's a central body for Waikato, so that the GMs can,
And that's where a lot of grunt work's done. And Kelly, for example, was until recently the chair of the HR group, which looked at bringing common process and practice to HR processes. So quite a number of ways.
It sort of smooths the silo operation a little bit, doesn't it? Because we're not working just in our own silo. It's a collective.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity to work collectively.
Yeah. I do have my views on how they might operate better. But there's always a fine line. I mean, at the end of the day, we are individual councils, and you can have the theoretical outcome of stripping out every service and doing it collectively as well. Why don't you restructure local government? So there's still restraints on what is able to be done to ensure that the organisation remains viable.
Answers your question. Yep. Okay, so would someone like to move that the final statement of intent be received?
Sorry, I just have one more question.
Yep.
It says that we don't have a director representing us. I thought John Hollyoak.
Yeah, he does.
He is still okay.
Nomination person.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
Okay, so you have to move the recommendation. That's Sarah Jane?
Yeah.
Yep. And a seconder? Thank you, James. All those in favour, please say aye. Yes, carried. Thank you. And now we'll move on to item 8.2, which is our draft annual report, and we have Olivia presenting that one. Olivia. Yeah, record. Hopefully you've all got some questions about our financials.
Did everyone find it? So yeah, it was
separately.
Yeah, I found it. It wasn't text.
Stephanie, were you able to bring up the presentation?
Excellent. Yeah.
Good morning. So we are doing an overview of the annual report. We are currently in the process of working on to be audited or begin audit on the 2nd of September. So we've put together the performance measure results to date that are yet to be audited, and then an overview of the financials as well. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, well, I guess it's the operating deficit's much more than budgeted, so that's right. Would you like to add?
Yeah, so the draft financials that you saw is our very first draft that we pulled together about 2 weeks ago, and the process is we pull that together and then we spend a lot of time poring over the numbers and trying to make sense of them, pulling together supporting documentation for the auditors, and that's when things sort of jump out that we need to ship things. So the draft you see may look slightly different. I'm hoping that the bottom line won't change significantly, but yeah, there's things we work through. So so that's why we don't rush to give you the full 100-odd page document, because things change. So yeah, so we're still working through that and hoping to give the audit. Well, we will give the auditors a draft on Friday, ready for them to start with on Monday. Yeah, just if you look at the version you have been given, the surplus or deficit shows $8.2 million surplus for the year, which sounds amazing, but it doesn't tell you anything about how we've actually performed during the year. There's a whole lot of accounting transactions in there that sort of cloud everything. So what I'm going to try and do in the next 3 slides is sort of strip out those things that are accounting transactions or the things that we don't really have a lot of control over, to sort of get to, hopefully in the third slide, these are the key things that are sort of contributing to our overall position that we have a bit more control over. So if you look at the slide there, the first three items on there are really accounting adjustments. So we're taking those off our $8.2 million surplus, and they certainly change the position quickly. So yeah, vested assets. That's developers vesting assets into council. We have to record that as revenue. There's a net gain on disposal of assets, which a big part of that is the 26 Rockford that we sold during the year, and then offset by other asset disposals during the year. Loss on interest rate swaps. So the interest rates came down a little bit, so that sort of changes our valuation. So that's a valuation at 30th of June. So they're just book entries that don't really tell you much about our day-to-day operations. The next two things here, DC revenue and government grants, they're funding for capital purposes. So I've taken those, stripped those out. Then we had a few little minor things, like we had a bequest. So someone's given us the money from their estate. So those things, and rates penalty income. So rates penalty income was actually 158,000 more than we budgeted. That's probably a sign of yeah, absolutely. It's tough out there.
I guess the bequest is being targeted for a specific project.
Specific funds, yeah, absolutely. So we'll account for that through our reserves, so we keep track of that bequest. Please interrupt me if you've got questions as we're going through
Bruce
here.
is struggling with his laptop.
That's all. The computer's playing.
I can't help with that. Okay, interest costs. Interest. I think we all know that interest costs are going up. We don't have a lot of control over that. I know.
The next 12 months it'll.
Yeah. Sorry, insurance. Insurance costs. Interest costs. What else we got there? Spending from reserve funds. So that's where you've said. So that's what projects were there? Tiara Spa project, the Matamata Stadium project. So that's spending that we don't budget for. It's spending that you've allocated from your reserve funding. Then what else we got there? EPH maintenance is all ring fenced, so whatever we spend over, it's sort of all captured. And then in the property department, we had a whole lot of little one-offs that added up to quite a big number. So we repainted the Tiara pool. We had seismic reports needed to be done for a couple of buildings. Tauhei car park was resealed for 85,000, which wasn't budgeted in our budgeting, but it's something the hall committee
They were paid for.
They paid for it out of their account. Yep,
Because that's generally what happens.
they had funding to do that.
Yeah, that's what I
So,
thought. It would have been in and out.
so that all sort of hits our bottom line, but it's not really part of our day-to-day operation. So once you take all that off our $8.2 million surplus, we're left with 6.6 deficit. Now, remember that we'd actually budgeted for a deficit this year because we're not fully funding our depreciation. So the 2.8 is our budgeted deficit. So that leaves means our operating deficit was about 3.7 more than what we budgeted. Any questions so far?
I was.
Yeah.
So I may have asked this in years gone by, but I can't remember because the brain's an amazing thing. Yeah, the deficit of $6.6 million. That doesn't mean that we're $6.6 million short of running the operation here. We got that correct on paper. On paper we are, but no.
Yeah, I guess we're saying we'd budgeted to be 2.8 short. Correct. So we're sort of that's
there is a deficit.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's because we're funding things out of reserves. That's probably the
By resolution.
By resolution.
Like this morning, for example, Chair, we authorised the expenditure of 180,000 for advancing the concept design. Now doesn't come to fruition, project's not finished, then that's money we wouldn't have budgeted. But in other words, you buy a resolution that approve that.
So explain vested assets.
So vested assets, so the Lockerbie subdivision, the developer's gone and put in roading and stormwater pipes and all the rest of it. For accounting purposes, all the value of those assets has to be recorded as revenue on our books for the year.
If you were a shareholder of this company, you would look at that bottom line and think it was quite good, because your asset backing to your shareholding is $8 million off better. But the challenge for us is we can't sell our water supply.
Yeah, those assets.
And then we have to maintain those assets and fund depreciation on them as well. So
yeah.
But then we have more ratepayers to help pay for that. So, yeah. Swings and roundabouts. Okay, can we go to the second slide? So we're sitting at 3.7. Oh, thank you. Yeah. There we go. Okay, so the next slide is talking about our revenue. So we had ups and downs in our revenue, and we don't have a lot of control. Once you get your fees at the start of the year, we don't have a lot of control of what happens from there. So some significant areas we were down in revenue. Metered water was a big one.
Which we've been living on hopes and dreams for a number of years, and I think we've rectified that this coming year, didn't we?
We've tried
to reduce that. Yeah, because we've been under for a few years now, and I think we've been unrealistic in our assumptions. Rectified it this year, hopefully that it will be closer to a zero rather than the area going down.
Yeah, there's no doubt users have substantially reduced their consumption.
And that's something that's hard to budget for anyway. We're better off to be conservative than be over optimistic.
So we've been talking about pools and spas. They had a difficult year with the Matamata pool being out of action for a little bit of time, and there was short of staff at the Domain House Beauty, I think, for a time too. So, and I think the spas had some extra baths that were added. So yeah, there's some issues there. And building consents obviously down a lot from what we'd planned, and refuse transfer station was another area we were underfunded and didn't meet our revenue targets.
I think last year the RTS was in a worse position, if I recall. Well, I think it's probably reduced from what it has been in the past. I think there's been some good cost recovery from the refuse stations with adding in the weighbridge to account for revenue more consistently, from my understanding. I think that's.
I don't think it was as bad as.
Yeah, I don't think it's as bad as what it has been. That's probably from what I recall with my interest in rubbish. But I think that the weighbridges have added a consistency over the revenue that comes through, so that's must be helping.
And then we had some areas where they sort of offset there, some gains on income. So once you get to the bottom of that, all the ins and outs, that leaves us with a remaining operating deficit. So these are sort of the areas that I've highlighted that are probably the more controllable areas of our budget that have contributed most to the operating deficit. And I've just noted there that 2.2 million is about 2.9% of our expenditure budget for the year. So payroll cost was a big number there. So the actual market movements by the time we come to do that part was higher than what we budgeted. And I also think we budget for a percentage. We assume that there's going to be a level of vacancies during the year, and I don't think we hit that level. I think we will start them than we assumed. Roading, now roading, about 171 of that 350k was down to power costs for our street lighting. So
Electricity's gone up.
yes, it sure has. Okay, and then we've got 3 areas there: water, 3 Waters business unit, and wastewater. So they were looking much better than last year, if you remember last year's result. But obviously still some challenges there. Consents and licensing costs, we're still calling on consultants to help us get through the backlog of those. And maintaining parks, trees and cemeteries. I know there was a lot of talk during the year and we've addressed that in our LTP going forward, but we have a lot more parks and cemeteries, or the cemeteries are expanding. So yeah, address that in the LTP, I believe.
That was specifically for Te Arapa, with the cost of extending that cemetery quite significantly, and hadn't been accounted for in the operational side of mowing it, needing another resource to keep that tidy.
Yes, I think we need additional resource because, with all the development and new parks, Lockerbie's an example.
I'm going to say Lockerbie.
Yeah.
My question there is consents, right? And yet we were down on consent revenue.
Yeah.
So you've got a fixed cost, whether you process 10 or 15 to start with. The second thing is that if you're still having to put them out, which we have been doing, you're paying their overhead, not ours.
So how close are we now to having staff that will cover all the consents rather than going?
Can't tell you that off the top of my head.
Because we're offsetting. There's no offset here at the moment. It seems to be coming out both ends.
I do know that we are still putting work out, but I don't know what that volume is, and I'll find that out for you.
Yes, we're looking in the rearview mirror here now, and it's knowing what we've addressed. There's a few things we've addressed, like the metered water, will improve our situation. But I guess the question is here is, and like obviously we addressed the need for more resource with the maintaining parks, trees and cemeteries. I think that's been addressed. Is there anything sitting in there that's at risk in this current financial year that we understand when things may track? Because it's too early yet to see a trend in the current financial year, but we can only manage what we can acknowledge. So is there anything there that's going to be a flag again, do you think? Hard to say.
I guess especially in the waters area, because legislation has changed, they're talking about softening the standards a little bit. So
actually that's a key point, is the compliance costs that we aren't necessarily in control of because we're doing more reporting. So that means more testing and more staff to do the reporting. So there's additional costs in there that sometimes aren't crystallised when we're planning a budget 18 months out from day one of the financial, so rapidly on us that there's not a lot of certainty. Hopefully that will settle. Hopes and dreams.
And payroll, I guess, are we up to sort of 1% now? Because I know there was nobody to get. Now there's probably a lot of people you can employ it. So we're there.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't look at you. Perhaps you should look at Tom.
There's still some challenges in areas, in specialist areas. Got to be candid about that. I think we are getting a higher response rate to in some areas. We always have salary movements that lag. So you would have seen movements last year which are coming through and hitting us now. So it won't be until next year, the next financial year. If this year sees a suppressed salary movement. We'll see that reflected in not this financial year, but in the following financial year. So as the Mayor said, we're dealing with both projections and also lag effects, and trying to understand where things are going and what we can do about it. But I mean, you know, we are seeing an aging workforce, and we're seeing specialists and people like project managers and all that sort of thing. They're still hard to recruit. I talk to the construction industry from time to time. They're losing people to Aussie. The capital work stream was turned down quite a bit, and that's resulting in companies struggling to. And we're competing with them for quite a number of those resources.
I guess the other question is around the payroll costs, is the liability of staff not taking their holidays. And I guess there's always a challenge, you know, when you don't, if a person goes on leave, nobody's filling their job over that time. There's always that tension. But I guess I think it appears to be reducing, like on previous years. We've always encouraged people to take their leave.
So it's not too far off this year.
Looks pretty good.
Our liability on annual leave is only marginally increased, because we actively encourage people over the Christmas break to take their leave, and we're continuing that effort this year.
Because it does sit as a liability in there.
Yeah, and especially with salary movements, your liability goes up.
Yeah. No questions on that. So that's the slide pack. Yeah, I guess we are. It's not an ideal situation because it's probably got worse over time, but that's the environment we're operating in at the moment. I guess we're victims of the environment. A little bit.
I mean, let's be candid. If you take maintaining trees and cemeteries, by way of example, I mean, we could clamp down sooner and harder in terms of spend in those areas, but
in what way?
Well, in the sense of putting tree arborists off, but as the risk, it comes down to risk.
Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Is doing the basics?
Yeah, that's
and
right.
that to me is a real good basics.
Yeah.
You've been to the conference.
Well,
You missed it. I know.
Because you remember we did. If you look for more, you find more too. That I think is what's been happening. To try and keep on top of the maintenance guys.
Any further questions for the team? Okay, so we've got a recommendation that the information is received and any feedback is provided. Yeah, obviously it's not a happy space.
Yeah. Well, there are things that we can do something about. There are things that we can't.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. We've tried to address some of those challenges in this year's budget.
There she goes. Okay, can I have someone move the recommendation? It's number one, yeah. It's received. Someone moving. Thanks, Russell. Moved Russell, seconded James. Motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Very. Thanks, William. It's a complex beast, our financials, because of the complexity of the business.
But when you look at the bottom line, you think it'd be.
You can lift the bonnet. You can look under the bonnet, and obviously with the polls, like once with the Matamata poll opening up again, that makes a huge difference to utilisation of an asset. Revenue.
And there's heaps of people there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we will now move back to item 8.1, which is the long service award. They will be coming in. They are here.
I'm getting efficient.
So it's a member of the building team, obviously, that is being recognised.
John, you might like to come straight up.
Yeah, we're ready for you, John.
Also soon.
So soon, yeah. Oh, we're very efficient this morning. We're running quite to time. We're all right. Yes, oh, it's Daniel. Daniel's going to speak to you.
You might like to run too.
We're ready for you, Daniel.
With me.
Oh, you can come over here. Right.
No, she's going to put up there. Yeah, that's all good. Daniel, when you're ready.
Daniel, are you going to?
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, you're related to that other fella that's sitting at the back of the room there. We see a lot of them.
I don't know who's unfortunate.
Welcome to your support family that are joining you today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Daniel, will give you the floor.
Morning all, and morning John support family and people. Congratulations, Sean, on 20 years. I think on Monday, the VCA had a bit of an afternoon potluck for John in our office, and a comment was made that one of our staff members was only 3 years old when John started to appear. So yeah, I mean, I think sometimes some people, some staff don't realise that people's got the dedication of staying so long at a specific job. But anyway, 17 years, about 20 years. I actually worked with John. And it's been really a good time, to be honest. We've sort of from day dot, we clicked. I mean, I think one of the things most probably was, as John lived in South Africa for a number of years, when I saw him at first, he actually greeted me in Afrikaans.
Wow.
And I thought
that's a nice welcome, isn't it?
Yeah, and I actually thought to myself, so how the heck did this guy know Afrikaans? Because I mean, he's a Kiwi guy, but then he explained to me how he come to know and the language, and I guess that's where it kickstarted the whole the relationship that we've got up until today. So since then, we've actually worked pretty close together as colleagues. In 2008, we had a few changes in the sense of systems that's changed through council, from corporate vision to authority, where term they changed into what we've got today, content manager now on, and then 10 and 11 and keep on going. We had a number of things that where the inspection sheets was changed, where John's just put up his hand and said, look, I'll trial it so that we can make sure that it works for us. So much so that at that time, legislation also changed under the Building Act to say that building control officers need to have a qualification. John made a mention before that to myself that before he one day retire, he really would like to have a qualification. And well, again, part of it, I said to him, look, if we want to go down that track, why don't we just work together as a team, make it easier for everybody else, and then we do it. So a lot of them, our booking calendars was blocked out on a Friday. Unfortunately, myself and John, I think sometimes Dean is saying that we're fools for punishment because we will go and we will help the contractors as we're doing inspections and so, or we will come in and we will actually do our paperwork in the office on a Friday afternoon. So we've set our time on the Saturday and said, look, we will meet each other at such and such a time, and we will work for quite a number of hours until we, in 2016, I think it was around September, but we've actually graduated with a diploma. So therefore, I mean, John actually achieved what is set out to achieve before he one day retired. A year later, we had an email as building control officers. We belong to the Building Officials Institute of New Zealand, BOINZ in short terms. we had an email from the head office to say that John was nominated to be one of the most active members of the Bay of Plenty branch. Myself and the previous building control manager had to pretty much keep it quiet as much as we can. I mean, I guess there was a stage where John was wondering why 3 of us are going to this conference, and being surprise, he was called up to do or to accept his nomination. Was on that 3.5 years later, I took over the building control unit as a building control manager with a few challenges, but knowing that I can go to John and ask him, say, how do you think we are going? So much so that I've asked him that actually the other day, and he also made a mention on Monday that we are the second best job he ever had in his whole career. And that to me is quite chuffed. In closing, I just want to thank the family of John, sharing John for 20 years with us, and hope that the time that he's still going to spend with us, we can actually achieve a number 1 place instead of a number 3. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much. And do I have a right of reply?
You do. You can pop it.
Turn this on.
Yep.
It looks like a legal brief.
It's your brother, isn't it?
Has nothing to do with it.
Wide, it's very wide still.
I'm accustomed to public speaking. I've made a few notes here. Mayor Adrian, CEO Don, councillors, and everyone here today, including my family. I would like to put this into perspective. When my grandfather, Arthur Needham, joined Sir Stephen Allen's law practice in Morrinsville, he was the borough solicitor from 1927 until his retirement in 1959, 32 years. My father, John Needham, then became borough solicitor until his retirement in 1982, 23 years. My daughter Elaine, who sits behind us here, was part of the Morrinsville Library, was a part-time library assistant from Morrinsville Library assistant from January to 2010 to 2011, 1.5 years. And now my 20 years service added to this milestone. So the 4 generations of Morrinsville Needhams have contributed a total of 76.5 years service to local government, 55 years to Morrinsville Borough Council, and 21.5 years to Matamata-Piako District Council. I would not be here if I had not mentioned to Manaia Tiwi Ata while driving home one evening from a Morrinsville College Board of Trustee meeting that I had noticed in the local newspaper the position for a building inspector was still advertised. He simply said, "Why don't you apply?" 20 years later, I'm still here. So thank you very much, Manaia, for the encouragement. Is Manaia here? No.
Yeah, you might be listening though, you never know.
We also want to thank Norm Barton for encouraging me and other building inspectors, as Daniel has alluded to complete the National Diploma in Building Control Survey. Small, medium, large buildings, a legal requirement at that time, but not for Norm and myself, as we were over the age of 65. We both wanted to complete it. We all graduated in September 2016 at a lovely ceremony in Auckland. A nice feeling of achievement when on stage and when handed my diploma, to hear a shout from the back of the auditorium, "Yay, way to go, Dad!" My family was there to join me in the celebration. And you are here again to witness this 20 years of service, as well as my brother Rodney. Thank you. I've met a lot of lovely people here at Matamata-Piako District Council, on building sites, property owners, and my involvement with the Building Officials Institute in New Zealand, commonly known as BOINS. So now, Don, I must rate this employment. I rate this the second best rewarding job I have had during my working career. The first was back in South Africa. The factory I worked at produced chemicals and plastic explosives. I was the only New Zealand there, and at that time there were 1,200 employees. I was assistant foreman in the building department. I clocked up 14 years service before immigrating with my family back home here to New Zealand. Like my grandfather, I've had the opportunity to witness the town's growth in Morrinsville. Subdivisions being surveyed, roads, curbs and channels, wastewater and stormwater infrastructure installed, as well as in the other two wards. I have witnessed the same here with the Lockerbie subdivision in Morrinsville. It is like a small town rising up out of the ground. I have been part of the inspecting these houses, being built and families taking possession. I have seen children walking to primary school, intermediate and high school. And now young mothers walking their children and in pushchairs to the new daycare centre at the roundabout at Lockerbie Street and Fairway Drive. So to conclude, it has been a real enjoyable privilege to be part of this wonderful team MPDC. We are very fortunate to have Daniel Kruger leading the Building Consents Authority. It is a fantastic team to belong to, and I'm enjoying it immensely. A great bunch of people to work with. Thank you, Mayor Adrian and CEO Don, for recognising my contribution to local government. God willing, I can give you a few more years to add to my. Thank you.
So very reassuring, John, to see somebody older than me still in that.
Hello, Mark.
My brother, of course, down the back there. So.
Okay.
No, I don't. I'm just testing. I thought you might buy it. It's always a pleasure, John, to acknowledge people that have given so much of their working career to this organisation. I suppose, that's something that we don't take for granted. And obviously the opportunity for you to work for us, and I mean, it's a skill set that is not readily available. The time, gosh, over the 20 years, how things have changed.
Very much so.
I remember Demis saying they used to process a building consent inside 40 minutes in the old days, and now I think it's 7 or 8 hours, and the cost in that is significant. But ultimately, at the end of the day, and you alluded to this, John, and took in your comments about Lockerbie, you're creating more than just a house, it's a home, and you want that property to be well built, pure, safe from things like weather tightness and all those other things, because that's something that's ultimately our responsibility and our legacy in terms of our contribution to that part of the building industry. So, John, I mean, when I see you around, it's always a pleasure to see you. You made some nice comments about us, and if I can embarrass you by saying that you've always been a very pleasant and respectful chap, and I know Daniel's always spoken very highly of you, as did Demis, and really playing your part of the team is important, because every individual within a team has got something to contribute to it, and you've provided that consistency along with Daniel over 21 years. So thank you for that, John, and look forward to you working for the next few years for Matamata-Piako. And just if you'd like to come, or maybe I'll come around there, shall I? Save you. John, well, thank you from us. And all the very best.
It's a turn for the cameras, yeah.
Hold it up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, if I can just wrap that up, it's lovely hearing telling your story of your connection to Morrinsville. I think a lot of us have a connection to this district for a long period of time, and you've told us your story today and your connection with council through your family. And I think there's a lot of pride there, isn't there? We're proud to live in this district, and it's lovely to hear you express your pride of being in this district, coming back to this district, really, because you could have gone anywhere. But that you're proud to work for Matamata-Piako District Council, because we are a team. We get a bit of negative pushback every now and again. It's always nice to celebrate the pride that we do have in this organisation and the service that we do provide to the community. So thank you for your service, and join us for a cup of tea and food, I presume, once we open that up. And if someone would like to move that the information be received, please. Thank you, Gary. Seconded, Russell. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Yes, carried. Right, we will now adjourn for morning tea. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. So we just item 8.4, if there's any questions. I apologise for the length of the mayoral diary. It's quite busy, and Evie and I struggled to get it completed, and we will endeavour to be more regular in presenting this diary because it's important time.
Adrian, I went through it with a fine-tooth comb and checked the days that you worked and made sure that you're in the right place at the right time. And I would just like to say you're a very busy girl, well done, and I would like to move with your yeah. Thank you. You seem to be out there all the way.
Thank you. Well, I endeavour to be as present in the community as I can, and when you receive a customer services survey that don't know us, it's really hard to know what more you can do. Anyway, can I have a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'll second.
Thanks, Dave.
I was just thinking that I'd like to really be some interest in that, like maybe not over that period of time, but to see if one of the papers is interested in, because I think like it would be impressive for people in the community to see how much you get out and around. And obviously everybody thinks that everybody sits on their bum and does nothing, but something like that as a column 6 times a year in a paper or something would be, I think, would be interesting for the community to see.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is there's other things that go in there is when I'm not busy, I have popped in and seen businessmen in Morrinsville and Matamata and just checked in and try to be proactive when I'm not busy.
I'm just going to make the comment on that I think you do an amazing job trying to get yourself spread between 3 towns. It's not an easy job, and well done, I say.
Thank you. Yeah,
just to the press, my fine-tooth comb was a joke, just in case.
It shows your hourly rate must be pretty low.
Yeah. I don't know. We do the job as best, represent us as best as we can. I think it's a privilege to be in this space.
I think, I think you have the full support of your council.
Yes, great.
Probably,
Okay.
can I just add another comment? Visible to Te Ao Māori as well. So, yeah,
right, we will now need to move into public excluded, please. So, thank you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see everyone. See you next time.
Yep.